There's a sound you cannot hear right now, not because it doesn't exist, but because it is too low, too slow, too deep for the conscious ear to register. It sits below the threshold of ordinary perception. But your body knows it, your nervous system responds to it, and for thousands of years, ancient builders knew exactly how to produce it. They carved it into stone. Not metaphorically, literally. The chambers they built deep inside hills beneath the earth, sealed from wind and light, were not random. They were tuned, calibrated to produce a single, precise acoustic frequency, and that frequency is 110 hertz. What happens to the human brain inside one of these chambers is something that modern neuroscience is only beginning to understand. The island of Malta holds one of the oldest freestanding structures on Earth. The Saflieni Hypogeum, carved entirely from rock over 5,000 years ago, descends 3 levels into the ground. Its walls are smooth. Its ceilings are curved. Its proportions at first glance seem almost accidental, the natural result of people carving through limestone with primitive tools. But they are not accidental. Researchers who conducted acoustic tests inside the Hypogeum found something that stopped them. The chambers resonate at a precise frequency. When sound is produced at 110 hertz, the low, sustained note of a male voice chanting, the entire structure responds. The walls vibrate. The sound fills the space not as echo, but as something far more enveloping, something that seems to come from everywhere at once and from nowhere. The same frequency was found at Newgrange in Ireland, at the chambered cairns of Scotland, at megalithic sites separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years of isolated human history. 110 hertz. Every time. This is not coincidence, and to understand why, you have to understand what 110 hertz does to the brain. The human brain contains 2 prefrontal cortices, left and right, each governing a fundamentally different mode of experience. The left prefrontal cortex is the seat of logic, of language, of linear thought, sequential reasoning, the inner voice that narrates your life from moment to moment. It is, in most waking hours, dominant, in control, filtering and categorizing everything that reaches your awareness. The right prefrontal cortex governs something different: emotional processing, holistic intuition, pattern recognition that operates below the level of conscious language, the kind of knowing that arrives not as a thought, but as a feeling, a sudden clarity, a sense of connection to something larger. When researchers at Princeton and the University of Malta used neuroimaging to study subjects exposed to sustained 110 hertz sound, they found something remarkable. The left prefrontal cortex, the logical, analytical, language processing center, showed measurable deactivation, and the right became more active, more dominant. The brain, under the influence of this specific frequency, shifted its entire mode of operation, not randomly, not gradually, precisely, at 110 hertz. The fMRI data showed something else. The brainwave patterns recorded in subjects inside resonant chambers matched almost exactly the patterns observed in experienced meditators during deep trance states. The kind of states that take years of practice to achieve voluntarily, the kind of states that mystics across every tradition have described as the threshold between ordinary consciousness and something beyond it. Ancient builders working with stone and bone and fire without any instrument capable of measuring frequency or scanning a brain somehow constructed rooms that induced exactly this state in anyone who entered them. That is not primitive. That is something else entirely. The physics of how they did it is in some ways even more astonishing than the neurological effect. The principle is called Helmholtz resonance. When air is enclosed in a cavity with a narrow opening, it will vibrate at a specific frequency determined by the geometry of the space, the volume of the chamber, the dimensions of the entrance, the material of the walls. This is the same principle that makes a bottle produce a tone when you blow across its opening. The geometry is the instrument. The builders of the Hypogeum used specific types of limestone, stone with particular density and reflective properties, to amplify rather than absorb sound. The narrow corridors leading into the inner chambers were not practical necessities, they were calculated, sized to trap and concentrate air vibration at the precise frequency that the inner chamber was designed to sustain. These were not tombs decorated with acoustic afterthoughts. They were acoustic instruments that happened to be made of stone. The geometry itself was the technology. Imagine entering one of these spaces, not as a modern researcher with equipment and notebooks, but as someone for whom this place was built. You descend into the earth. The light fades. The sounds of the world above, wind, birds, the voices of others, disappear entirely. And then the chanting begins. A group of voices sustained at a low, resonant pitch. Not melody, not music in any modern sense, just a held note, deep and steady, filling the chamber from every direction simultaneously. The stone responds, the air responds, and within minutes, you respond. The left brain quiets. The inner narrator, the voice that tells you who you are and what is real and what is possible, steps back. What remains is something older, wider, a mode of awareness that the ancient world considered not altered, but clarified, more real, not less. This was not accidental spiritual practice. This was deliberate, reproducible, engineered. Researchers studying incubation rituals, ancient practices of entering sacred spaces for the purpose of receiving visions or guidance, have found this pattern across cultures, in Mesopotamia, in ancient Greece, in pre-Columbian America, in the megalithic traditions of Europe. Seekers would enter a prepared space, often underground, often in darkness, and remain there, sometimes for days. What they reported upon emerging were not vague feelings of peace. They described vivid visionary states, communications, clarity about questions they had carried for years. Modern neuroscience now has a mechanism for what they experienced, 110 Hertz, and what it does to the prefrontal cortex. Here is what makes this genuinely difficult to explain away. The builders of these structures had no written language of acoustics, no instruments for measuring frequency, no knowledge of neuroscience or the prefrontal cortex. They worked, as far as we can tell, with empirical observation, building, testing, adjusting, over generations, and they arrived at a solution so precise that it still produces measurable neurological effects in subjects 5,000 years later. Either they understood something about the relationship between geometry, sound, and human consciousness that we are only now rediscovering, or they were guided by something, a tradition, a knowledge base, a source of information that we have not yet accounted for in our understanding of prehistoric humanity. Both possibilities are extraordinary. What is perhaps most striking about the 110 Hertz discovery is what it implies about the people who came before us. We tend to imagine prehistoric humans as fundamentally limited, capable of survival, capable of ritual, but operating without the sophisticated understanding of mind and matter that we associate with modern science. The acoustic engineering of the Saflieni Hypogeum suggests something different. It suggests that at least some of our ancestors understood, empirically, practically, reproducibly, that the human mind is not fixed, that it can be tuned, that the boundary between ordinary consciousness and expanded awareness is not a wall, but a frequency, and they built the instrument to cross it. Today, researchers in bio-acoustics are revisiting this understanding. Therapeutic applications of specific sound frequencies, including ranges near 110 Hz, are being studied for their effects on anxiety, cognitive function, and neurological recovery. The architecture of wellness spaces is being reconsidered in light of what ancient builders seemed to know intuitively. The intersection of physics and consciousness, which we tend to treat as a frontier of modern science, may be a rediscovery of something ancient. The Saflieni Hypogeum still stands. You can still enter it, and if you descend into its lowest chamber, and if someone produces a sustained sound at the right frequency, the walls still respond. 5,000 years of silence, and the stone still remembers. Perhaps the question is not how our ancestors knew to build this. Perhaps the question is why we forgot.